about traveling, but the coronavirus really scared me. You weren't going to travel to Asia anyway. Shut up. Hey everyone, it's Karina Worldwide, aka your favorite traveler. The past few videos I have not been in China. I was in Myanmar and then now I am home in the States. If you are new, welcome aboard. Thank you for, rocking with me for the first time. Hopefully you will subscribe so you can stay up to date on what's going on in my world. If you've been rocking with me for a minute now, welcome back. So honestly, today I just want to talk about the coronavirus and how it's impacting so many people's lives, especially people like myself who have been living in China and now we're being told we can't go back to our lives. And so many people are like, well, you're home, you should be happy. And I am happy to be home. I'm always happy to spend time with family and friends. But the harsh reality is that my home is now in China. Like my apartment is in China. My life is in China. My important documents are in China because I didn't think that I would need to bring my documents back because I thought I was going back to China. And so honestly, I have been living out of a suitcase because I usually come home during Chinese New Year. They have this month-long celebration, so usually most people are going to China to partake in the festivities. I like to come home and spend time with my family and friends because it's the longest vacation I have, which is a month. So I was supposed to be leaving to go back to China next week, but my flights have been canceled. And if you have been living under a rock, then I'm sure you haven't heard about the coronavirus. But if you are like everyone else who has tuned in to CNN or have even just been browsing on Facebook and Instagram, you've heard about the coronavirus. And so the coronavirus has officially become like a global health risk. So of course, airlines are now starting to cancel flights. And I was flying on Delta. I am pro Delta. So I was supposed to be leaving next week, but now I don't know when I will be going back because Delta is not resuming flights until April 30th. So that's a few months out. And so I've just been sitting here waiting for my school to kind of confirm when we're gonna go back to school and what we're gonna do in the meantime, like electronic assignments and what have you, because of course, kids still need to learn, but I'm not gonna be flying back to China and then end up stuck there, which is happening to a lot of people. I spoke to several of my friends who still live in China and they are basically about to be trapped in China because airlines are just canceling flights without even telling people. For people who don't live in China, it just sounds like, well, just catch a flight. But when the flights are being canceled and countries are closing their borders, and I have friends who are like, okay, well, maybe I can go to Korea or I can go to Japan, and then from there I have to take a flight because you are on the verge of being trapped in a country. And the coronavirus doesn't bother me much. What scares me is being trapped in a country that is not my home country, where I'm not well versed in the language. Like I can talk enough to get some of my point across, but I can't effectively communicate in Mandarin. So that would be a big fear for me. Shanghai is about 429 miles from Wuhan. Wuhan is where the coronavirus allegedly began. And let me be clear, I say allegedly, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but with all of these things that's coming out with people eating bat soup and the snakes, they've been doing that for centuries. This is nothing new. Bat soup is nothing new. So I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, but I do know that Chinese people have been doing this for centuries. So it happened in Wuhan, and Wuhan, yeah, it sounds like it's super far, 429 miles away, but you can get on a flight and be there in like 2 hours. You can catch a train and be there in 3 to 5 hours. So it's not that Shanghai won't be affected by what's going on in Wuhan. Actually, there have been several cases of the coronavirus in Shanghai. And Shanghai has a population of 24 million people. 24 million people. Wuhan has a population of 11 million. So if you think about Shanghai, my city, having a population of 24 million people, the city of Shanghai is bigger in terms of population than the entire state of New York. Yeah, let me say that again. A city is bigger in terms of population than an entire state. I live in Minhang district of Shanghai because it's broken off into districts. And so far there have been 4 cases of the coronavirus in my district alone. And the reason why I'm a little apprehensive about going back so soon is because not just Shanghai, China as a whole, it's overpopulated and it's very congested. So anything can happen. When it comes to like washing hands and covering your mouth when you sneeze and cough, those are things we're taught as a child. And those are things as a teacher in China, I'm often having to remind my kids. So I'm like, why the heck don't my kids remember to just cover their mouths? And then you meet their parents in a parent-teacher meeting and they're like, and just sneezing, and you're like, oh, now I know. Now I see why it's so difficult for Leo to cover his dang mouth, because Leo's mom doesn't know how to cover her dang mouth. When it comes to Shanghai and Beijing and very big cities in China, it's equivalent to New York or in LA or, Chicago, where people go there. It's a tourist attraction. It's a tourist city. So it's Chinese New Year. People are migrating to Shanghai and Beijing and these bigger Chinese cities to partake in the festivities. If you're leaving Wuhan, and let's say before the outbreak was publicized, people were leaving and preparing to go to these different bigger cities to partake in these festivities, and now they're trapped in these cities. China is a communist country, and so the government controls so much. When people ask me like, what are some of the challenges of being in China, that's one of the biggest challenges, is the fact that the government controls so much. Here in the States, even though we often feel like we don't have a voice, we have a democracy. And in China, it's the complete opposite. And so when it comes to social media or the news or any type of media outlet, the government controls what is put out. And which is why we started hearing about the coronavirus so late. Like, I didn't hear about the coronavirus until I got to the States. Meanwhile, the first case was documented back in December while I was still in China. So if you're not familiar with China, they have the Great Firewall that blocks most Western sites. So Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all that. No, it's blocked in China, because they control what people in China see. So you would need a VPN to be able to access, even like CNN, you need a VPN to access all of those things. For some people, especially here in the States, you hear about it and you're just like, okay, well, I'm not in China, but like people who have lived in China or people who still have friends in China, it's different, because you have friends, like one of my friends I spoke to this morning, her flight was canceled and they didn't even tell her flight was canceled. She got to the airport and they're like, oh yeah, we're canceling flights. And I know there were airlines that were saying, okay, well, you have until the 5th, which is less than a week, to get on this airplane. And then you're going to the airport like, okay, I'm within that window. And then they're like, no, we canceled it. And the rest of the flights are booked and they're full. So we don't know what to tell you. In conversations that I've had, I don't even think it's just the coronavirus. It's the fact that we are not Chinese citizens. Even if you speak really good Mandarin, it's gonna still be difficult. And so being locked in a country that is not your own, that is what is terrifying. And I've seen pictures where they're running out of food in the grocery stores, and people are walking around, and even though it's now like a requirement on public transportation for you to have a mask, some people still not wearing masks, and they're coughing and they're doing all of this stuff, and it's a lot. Whether you're in the States or China or another country, like, we're all waiting. We're all at a standstill, and that's one of the same things we're all having to deal with, because we don't know when we can go back to our lives in China. In China, education is a lucrative business. And so, of course, schools are gonna want their staff to come back in a timely manner. Like, yeah, even though, they're pushing back the schools to start like in March, they are still wanting their staff to come back as soon as possible, because we are gold mines. As a foreign teacher, you have to deal with the harsh reality that you will be dehumanized. And I have friends who work at training schools, and they're like, well, even if school doesn't start back until March 1st, you need to be back here by mid-February or we will fire you. And that's just where they are right now, because they're just like, we need bodies to to teach English, and that is your job. People who have never visited China or they don't know much about China, they think about like Mulan and the Bruce Lee movies and all of these movies where it really looks like they're living from the mountaintops or in Chinese temples. But a lot of Chinese cities are super developed. Like Shanghai, it's a developed city. Like everything that you can imagine is there. Like they have, of course, movie theaters, shopping centers, clubs, bars, universities. So it's not like I'm living in the mountaintops with hill people and they're just like, we want Corona. No, I shouldn't have said that, sorry. But like, so it's not like I'm living in the mountains with the hill people. Like, no, I live in a developed city. It is just like New York, just with a whole bunch of Chinese people. And that is the thing that gets me too. Like I said, it's 11 million people and 24 million people in Shanghai. And so we're so congested that if one person gets something, boom, 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 boom. And then also, I've never taught in the States, so I don't know how they handle sicknesses in the schools. But in China, a lot of Chinese schools, or the schools that I've worked at or I've tutored at, when 1 or 2 kids are sick, their whole classroom has to go into quarantine. And so with quarantine, you take all of your meals in that classroom, you play in the classroom, you never leave. The students' parents actually come in through a different entrance and they take the kids out through a different exit when you're in quarantine. So you're never like with the general school population. This is one of the reasons why I'm like, it's difficult to really get a hold on this if it does happen to affect way more people in Shanghai or these very developed cities. As a teacher, even though if my kids were under quarantine the last 2 weeks of school because 3 or 4 of my kids ended up with the flu. And so I have 20 kids in my class. And so even though we're going through a separate entrance, even though we have to stay in the classroom the whole day, as a teacher, I can then go downstairs and make copies and touch the printer. I'm touching everything else that other teachers are touching, which means it's not like teachers are immune to the sickness, no. So it still carries. And so that is why I'm just like, yeah, I don't think no. It's so sad because you walk around China and it's filled with life. People are always moving around and they're sending me pictures and the streets are bare. The grocery stores are bare. No one's moving. And if they're moving, they have face masks on and they're only leaving because they have to leave. I keep getting a little anxious because it's just the thought of not knowing. That's the scary part. Like, can I go back? Will I ever be able to go back? And if so, when? Like, while you're on vacation, of course you're being paid, but then you're like, okay, are you gonna continue to pay me if this goes on longer than intended? You start thinking like, if it does get pushed back to April 30th, am I gonna still get a check? Or are we going to like work so we can still get, some income? I will say this, like, one of the things I do love about people is, not to say it's something that's funny, but it is good to see people are trying to find the humor and people are trying to uplift spirits, even though this is really affecting us more than people know. I just listened to my friend's husband's diss track, his group. They're actually in China. They did a coronavirus diss track. And I'm gonna let you guys hear some of it because it is so catchy. Like, wear your mask at. Wear your mask at.
Corona. Sip on Corona. Sip on Corona. Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Wear your mask.
When I heard that, I was like, oh, this is catchy. And I'll actually put the link below. We definitely need to diss the coronavirus because it is really messing with a lot of us. It's messing with us being able to go home. It's messing with our checks. It's messing with a lot. And I know like so many people have lost their lives already, and it's just like, what happens? Like, where do we go from here? Like, what is happening? And like I said, the Chinese government, they're not very transparent. So you're just like, you don't know what to believe. Overall, if you were thinking about moving abroad, don't let this situation stop you from following your dreams and pursuing what it is you want to pursue. Because I'm gonna be honest, this is not gonna stop me from traveling. I'm gonna still travel. So the question that a lot of people have asked me, they're just like, so are you gonna go back? And like I said, I don't know. No, I do know. I know that I will be going back. I don't know when I will be going back because there are so many things that come into play before I can make a decision. Like the airline and my school, like all of those things come into play. I wanted to just give you guys my take on what's going on and how the coronavirus has affected myself and people I know. Since people have been asking me for the past few weeks, like, so with the coronavirus, do you have it? Do you know someone with it? So what are you gonna do? So I just wanted to just do a quick video to kind of give you guys an update on where I am. But I am in America still. I don't know if my next video will be in America, so stay tuned. Bye! To stay updated on what's going on in Karina's world, please click the subscribe button. Don't forget to like and share. Ciao!